Nation Prime. I am Faith Nyaude. A quick look at stories making the headlines tonight. We continue with our coverage of President Mnangagwa's 4-day visit to Belarus. The president is tomorrow scheduled to lead Zimbabwe's delegation for formal talks with the Belarusian team, led by his counterpart Alexander Lukashenko. We have Fungi Kwaramba on standby in Minsk with that update later on. The Zimbabwe Republic Police has released the names of 20 Zimbabweans who died during a mine disaster in South Africa following the completion of the verification process by the country's embassy in Pretoria. Stay tuned for updates on that story. A plea for more ZiG liquidity. Captains of industry say the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe should inject more ZiG into the market, arguing that what's currently available is only adequate for use as change. And Chevron's coach Justin Summons says his charges are naturally fired up ahead of the England Test match. That story and more in our look at sports news. And our main story this evening, Finance and Investment Promotion Minister Professor Mthuli Ncube today led a Zimbabwean delegation in Belarus on a business roundtable to explore new opportunities between the two countries. Professor Ncube is part of President Emmerson Mnangagwa's delegation on a 4-day state visit to Minsk. Addressing the media after the high-level meeting, Professor Ncube said focus was on scientific economy cooperation.
Certainly we want to improve trade. What's happening on the trade front, we should be able to push towards establishing trading warehouses in Belarus and also in Zimbabwe to promote trade between the two countries, but also to promote investment. The one good thing is that Belarus has got the Belarusian Development Bank, which is providing export finance to Belarusian companies that may wish to establish in Zimbabwe or trade in Zimbabwe. So this already is creating a wonderful opportunity in terms of financial support and foray into Zimbabwe. But we'll explore more areas. For example, as you know, we're strong in the area of horticulture. At least that is moving up in the world. Flower industry, blueberries, avocado, and you know our coffee is also very special.
Meanwhile, Information Minister Jenfan Muswere, who is also part of the delegation, said the visit is meant to consolidate cooperation in the agricultural sector towards achieving food security.
The visit also focuses on how best we can deepen our economic and international relations. The transformation of the agricultural sector, which also includes the post-harvest implementation modalities in order to also achieve food security.
Our correspondent Fungi Kwaramba, who is in Belarus, gives us an overview of the president's visit so far, as well as a preview of tomorrow's program. Over to you, Fungi.
President Mnangagwa will tomorrow lead the Zimbabwean delegation for formal talks with the Belarusian delegation led by his counterpart Alexander Lukashenko. President Mnangagwa is in Belarus on a 4-day state visit that has seen him so far engage with political and business leaders of the East European country. This afternoon, Finance, Economic Development and Investment Promotion Minister Professor Mthuli Ncube led a delegation of Zimbabwe on a round table that was meant to explore new avenues of cooperation between the two countries. The robust roundtable dwelt on different trade aspects between the two countries, particularly in scientific and economic cooperation. On the other end, Minister of Information, Publicity and Broadcasting Services, Dr. Jenfan Muswere, met with the mayor of Minsk, Vladimir Kukarev, and officials from the Belarusian National Media Integration Group. The discussions focused on potential areas of cooperation between the two countries.
We are now joined live by Zimbabwe's group political editor Ranga Mataire to discuss the bilateral relations between Zimbabwe and Belarus. Ranga, very good evening to you. Now, Zimbabwe and Belarus have signed several agreements in agriculture, energy, transport, as well as mining. How have these deals materialized so far since their signing?
I think there is a lot that have moved in terms of practicability of the bilateral relations between Belarus and Zimbabwe. But let's go back in history a bit. The establishment of diplomatic relations is 16 April 1992. What was the motive for the establishment of these relations? You realize that at some stage Zimbabwe needed to diversify in terms of its exports. You remember the Look East policy. You also remember how it was affected following the land reform. So you recall that the president, who was the vice president then, visited Belarus in July 2015 when he was the vice president. This was then followed by another visit in 2019 when he was the president. So the practicability in terms of bilateral relations was, came to fruition in 2023 when the president of Belarus, Lukashenko, visited Zimbabwe, where there was a delivery of trucks under the Belarusian farm mechanization facility. So this is the practicability of the relations between the two. Of course, there is room for more growth, more development in the areas of agriculture, mining, energy, and transport.
Now, Ranga, trade turnover between the two countries averages about 25 million United States dollars. How best can the two countries continue to improve on their trade?
There's room for the two countries to boost their trade, and as I have alluded to you, I think it's a virgin relationship which I think has a lot of potential. You also recall that sometime in 2022 there was the establishment of the agreement on the establishment of the Joint Permanent Commission, which commission then moved to have a business forum here in Harare, in which 30 Belarusian companies were exhibited and 200 local companies were also part of that business forum. There was a lot of exchange in terms of what can be traded between the two countries. So there is room for expansion, there is room for growth. That's why you have seen the president currently in Belarus. You might be aware also that Belarus is known for manufacturing one of the biggest dump trucks in the world, with a capacity of 450 tons. And this is what Zimbabwe is eyeing in terms of supply of mining equipment. So you can see that there is already something that Zimbabwe is looking forward to. There are areas of energy as well that Zimbabwe can also exploit with the Belarus. So there are a number of areas that the two countries can work on, given the fact that there seem to be convergence on a number of political international issues.
Now, Ranga, politically, what does Zimbabwe stand to benefit from aligning itself with other countries like Belarus?
Like I've said before, Zimbabwe, in terms of political consultation, in terms of political alignment, Zimbabwe finds itself with a common, denominator and common, thinking between the two countries on a number of international issues. Belarus have stood by Zimbabwe on a number of issues. Belarus have been maligned, just like Zimbabwe has also been maligned, for standing steadfast for what they think is the right in terms of, in the case of Zimbabwe, in terms of land. So there is a convergence in terms of political issues on the international scale. So Zimbabwe has a lot to benefit. You will be aware that Belarus is also friendly to Russia, and they have cordial relations there as sister countries. So there is a lot that Zimbabwe stands to benefit by aligning with Belarus. The president has emphasized that their main foreign policy, the main foreign policy of the country is anchored on being a friend to all and an enemy to none. He has also recently said that Zimbabwe will fraternize with willing partners. So when you see another partner, being forthcoming in cooperation, that's where Zimbabwe goes. It is an enemy of none and a friend to all.
Ranga, thank you so much for joining us and for your time. That was Ranga Mataire, the Zim Paper's group political editor, was just helping us unpack relations between Harare and Minsk. Now, acting President Dr. Constantino Chiwenga today attended the burial of Dr. Paul Chijikawa-Siku, elder brother to Ambassador Boniface Chijikawa-Siku and late national hero and former Chief Justice Godfrey Chijikawa-Siku. Dr. Chijikawa-Siku was honored with a state-assisted funeral, reflecting his contributions to the country, which saw him serving in various capacities in the communications sector, including his time at Zim Papers, where he was editor of Kwaiza. In his address at the funeral, acting President Chiwenga highlighted the impact that the late Dr. Chijikawa-Siku had on Zimbabwe.
Inguva yakapuwa Paul kuti agare pano panyika vashoma vanosvika makore iwaya 98 makore makumi mapfumbamwe nemasere. Mwari vakamuchengeta kuti aone mhuri yake. Zvinopuhwa chipo chinopuhwa kuvanhu vashomanani panyika. Mutemo wa Musiki unoti kana wasvika makore makumi manomwe 70 zvakwana full stop. Ukaona wapfuura ipapo wapuhwa ka bonus womutenda Musiki. Ndo makore atapuhwa nekutadza kwedu handiti. Asi ava vapuhwa vangosarirwa nemaviri kuti vasvike pazana. Saka tinozvipembera, tinozvikudza, tinofanira kutenda Mwari.
The acting president also expressed sorrow at the death of Squimigis Manga, widow of national hero and former commander of the Zimbabwe People's Revolutionary Army, ZIPRA, Rogers Alfred Nikita Manga. She passed away on the 11th of May in Blayo at the age of 69 after battling asthma-related complications. The acting president said Ms. Manga was a symbol of resilience, standing steadfast alongside her husband during the liberation struggle against colonial oppression. He extended condolences on behalf of President Mnangagwa, the ruling ZANU-PF party, and the government, urging the Manga family to find solace in knowing that the entire nation mourned with them. The late Manga is survived by his son Loche and 9 grandchildren. Industry players want more zig injected into the economy. Details when Newsplus comes back.
Stuck on you. Ooh, obsessed with you. I'm obsessed.
With Showmax, your favorite characters now follow you anywhere. Download it today and watch the best in local, international, and everything in between.
In a land where traditions run deep, where the soil holds the secrets of generations, and where dreams are sown alongside seeds, a new generation emerges. Welcome to Young Seeds. Get ready to embark on a journey like no other as we shine a spotlight on the dynamic and inspiring young farmers in the heartland of Zimbabwe.
To do it because plants will die, plants will get infected by diseases.
I tried to do mixed farming, that is also putting tomatoes. I have half a hectare of tomatoes.
Every 40 days it has to be giving birth. Produce a good quality fruit size.
Calves are kept in different pens, basically so that they don't spread diseases to each other.
My name is Tariwa Sikauke. I'm a rabbit farmer.
These young farmers are revolutionizing traditional practices, embracing technology, and finding sustainable solutions that will shape the future of agriculture. So, let's get our hands dirty.
You are still watching Newsplus right here on ZTN Prime. Now, police have released the names of 20 Zimbabweans who died during a mine disaster in South Africa in January this year. This follows the completion of the verification process by the country's embassy in Pretoria. A total of 87 people of various nationalities are reported to have died in the Northwest mine disaster, mostly artisanal miners. Scores of illegal miners were recently trapped underground in the area when most of them opted to stay underground, fearing arrest. National Police spokesperson Commissioner Paul Nyati confirmed the death of the 20 Zimbabweans in a statement that was released earlier today. Here are some of the names of the deceased. Authorities said some of the bodies are yet to be claimed by their next of kin, while some victims' full particulars are yet to be obtained, but concrete information indicates that they are Zimbabweans. The country's envoy to Pretoria, Ambassador David Hamadziripi, said recently that victims would be identified through DNA testing of relatives. Ambassador Hamadziripi encouraged Zimbabweans who have reason to believe that their relatives might be part of the rescued group of individuals in Stilfontein to urgently contact the consular in Johannesburg. In other news, the Zimbabwe National Chamber of Commerce is urging the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe, the RBZ, to inject more local currency into the economy. Today, the industry representatives group sat down with RBZ Governor John Mushayawanu to iron out issues that are impacting business. One of the issues raised was about tight liquidity. The Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe governor says there isn't such, but cash that is circulating among a few banks and them lending conservatively. The Zimbabwe National Chamber of Commerce says that the local currency scarcity is affecting business transactions.
From a Chamber of Commerce position, we still believe the ZiG availability in the economy is still very thin, to the extent that the local currency had become a currency for change more than for trading in the economy. I think what is refreshing is we had a candid conversation where the central bank promised to look at some of the issues, but also it ordered business not to be crybabies. But for businesses, the issue of the cost of funds, they're still too high. There's ZiG liquidity, there's no money in the economy. Then you look at the surrender requirements. Chamber of Commerce is pushing for about 25% from the current 30%, knowing fully well that most of the exporters in the economy, they are suffering from electricity challenges, exchange rate volatility for a better part of last year.
We are now going to cross over to Blayo with our correspondent Adile Chuma to give us the details on the case of a suspected fake Blayo doctor who has been remanded from the 30th of May for judgment. As the case draws to a close, the suspect, Prosper Vanwawone, who was operating under the alias of Prosper Mpofu in his final submissions, today denied any wrongdoing and claimed he trained at a South African medical institution, the Medical University of Southern Africa, which has since changed its name. He appeared before Blayo Magistrate Eva Mature, charged with impersonating a medical professional. Last week, Mpilo Central Hospital Chief Medical Officer Nasias Njanga was subpoenaed to testify in the matter, where he described Vanwawone as an alien at the institution. Andile, give us the details, please.
Well, good evening and thank you very much. So the case of the suspected fake doctor is coming to a close as Prosper Vanvaone, who was operating under the alias Prosper Mbofu, continues to deny the charges, and the judgment date has been set for May 30, where Bulawayo Magistrate Mrs. Eva Matura is set to give her final judgment on the case. Vanvaone is currently behind bars. He was denied bail. He had initially been given bail, however, the state overturned bail after he was convicted of some fraud charges. He's being accused of impersonating a medical professional and also in some cases taking money from unsuspecting people, promising them of placement at the Mpilo Central Hospital nursing school. So he was claiming that he can organize for people and take bribes, promising them placement at the nursing school. This is part of why he was convicted for fraud. However, for the ongoing case where he's being accused of impersonating a medical professional, he continues to deny the charges. This afternoon, he gave his final submissions where he is claiming that he trained as a medical professional from a South African institution that was at the time going under the name.
Andile Chuma, our blind correspondent, with those details. Andile, thank you so much. Now, women's organizations have called for more engagement to avoid gender bias and stereotypes in media spaces. This came out during a capacity building training on gender responsive reporting organized by the Voluntary Media Council of Zimbabwe in partnership with the Friedrich Naumann Foundation in Harare recently.
In a bid to promote gender equality in the media, the Voluntary Media Council is championing a new approach in journalism. Board member Lennox Mhlanga emphasizes that a woman with a voice is by definition a strong woman.
It's designed to empower you with practical tools to identify and challenge gender bias, to use inclusive language, and adopt ethical journalism practices that align with democratic values, human rights, and media freedom. Our objectives are clear: to improve accuracy in gender-related reporting, increase representation of women and other groups in news coverage, and raise public awareness of gender issues.
Member of Parliament Kudzaise Slashwayo revealed that women often face limited opportunities, highlighting the need for change.
You know, we really need to be aware of this as journalists so that we get out of that space and we give more women, you know, opportunities to speak. I am actually, you know, even if you ask my sister here, I'm always complaining actually that as women we don't get space in media, and I'm always looking out for opportunities to say out my views, be it in debates in Parliament and things like that, but sometimes it doesn't happen because of the patriarchal society that we find ourselves in.
To address this issue, the Women's Coalition of Zimbabwe is calling for collaboration between different stakeholders. Programs Manager Rotina Mafume believes working together is the way forward.
To say we are now moving together, like the partnership point that was raised, we are moving together. You know, the most surprising thing is giving information and then the headline is a threat to your work.
But some organizations view the media as a threat. Nash Chitondo, Deaf Zimbabwe Trust Officer, calls for proper framing of media engagement.
And collaborate, because for the longest time we have looked at these journalists as threats to our organizations and to our growth.
Herald editor Victoria Rizo believes that if journalists apply an inclusive interview approach, it will ensure diverse voices.
They shouldn't be monotonous with just the same people with the same narrative. So if you look at an inclusive approach, it means if it's a subject, you can be able to speak to the women, the youth, the other disadvantaged, the physical disadvantaged, or any form of disadvantaging that they have. It's about creating space for authentic stories while being mindful of power dynamics.
As women's voices continue to rise, barriers will begin to fall. With increased visibility and the recognition of women's capabilities, more women will be empowered to take on leadership roles. Latu Nyangu reporting for ZTN Prime in Harare.
In some agricultural news, a call has been made for stakeholders in the agriculture sector to take into account the various developmental projects that are being spearheaded by the private sector for collaborative initiatives. This was said by Agriculture Permanent Secretary Professor Obert Jiri during a National Development Strategy 1 Food Security and Nutrition Thematic Working Group meeting in Harare today. The meeting saw government line ministries and parastatals exchanging ideas on how the set targets of the NDS1 can be speeded up and met before the periodic of the economic blueprint labs.
Look at what the private sector is doing is very critical. For boreholes, for example, there are a lot of development partners who are doing boreholes and nutrition gardens. I'm told that there could be as much as 3,500 nutrition gardens done by our development partners out there. But our government system doesn't report them. They report the village business units, 478. But what is the difference between the two? It's just because this one was done by the private, the development partner, and that one is done by government. So the agri-tax officer reports what was done by government in their report.
Now, the setting up of a multi-million-dollar cement plant project on the outskirts of Magunja Growth Point by Wizem, a Chinese company, is progressing well ahead of its commissioning that is expected in June next year. Our Mashonaland West Bureau filed the following report.
Site levelling works have so far been completed, with facilities connected to the national grid. The company has taken delivery of construction materials with preliminary work to set up the plant, taking progress at the site to 20%.
Everything is now in place. My site pachanda plant, pachanda chi, pachanda mabomis, ne pachanda clinker avepo is ready. Eleko zvinozvi takutarisira kuti takutangawo zvakare kugadzira ma-bricks anova iwo futi achiyashandisa panapa.
Wizem is optimistic that this will be able to give back to the community upon completion.
Tiri kutarisira zvakare kuti by next year around May pange vachatanga takuita matest run yeplant yedu inofanira kunge yapera by May 2026. Then commissioning tiri kutarisira by June. Tofanira kunge tapedza this whole plant, takuproduce cement, takutotanga kutengesa, uyewo imwe yacho titange tichitodonata patichapedza kugadzira plant, tidonata kune maschools nenharaunda yese ino kuti vaone kuti cement yedu inenge yakasimba sei.
And at the moment, 50 youths are a part of the project, and Wizem will be recruiting another 100 by the end of May. This has addressed unemployment in the community.
But almost 98% my employers muno mumagunde mumazimbabwe vana vambuya nehanda kutapa nyakasikana nakaguvi vambobhenefitawo vana vachaminuka tatanzwa nekutambura kuno kumakore asi ndikufara zvisingaite kuti zvaitikawo kuhurungwe.
Ndinoda kupa kutenda kukuru iye zvinezvi tine vana vamwe vatova pano ready kana ndisina kukanganisa vanotosvika kana kuma-20 pabasa vari kutosenza. Vamwe vaitinetsa nokunwa madoro nokudidi nokuputa zvinodhaka. Ndiri kufara chaizvo kuti iko zvinezvi hapachisina zvinhu zvakadaro. Ende zvatipowo mukana wekuti vana vedu vauye kuno kuzisenza pano.
This includes young women.
Kambani akauya tikaona kubata semupise vanhu vechikadzi tagona kusimudzirana tichidetserana zvinofamba zvakanaka.
With accommodation now in place, small businesses in the community have been boosted.
The business remu community ra boost. Notwa kuma vari kushanda panapa. Vari kutenga ma vegetables pa irrigation produce, vari kutenga fish pa dam apa dzichinge batwa nema youth. Also business generally rangu kura.
An orphanage, Ponesai Vanu Children's Home in Shamba, has received a major boost following the donation of a 1-hectare garden by Instatal Africa. The orphanage runs successful projects to address the nutritional needs of 65 children in their care while equipping them with life skills. Some of the projects include piggery, rabbit keeping, poultry farming, gardening, and cattle farming.
our belief is that we must, like making a profit. After making a profit, we then donate to the community that we work in, the communities where we come from, and that's what we have done today. And our belief is that these donations, which we started off in 2022 by donating food and what are they called, chickens for eggs, and now we have donated this garden. We are hoping that our partnership with Konesaivan will result in sustainable projects.
The garden will enable the orphanage to produce commercial produce year-round while providing hands-on skills to the children. The home has been managed by Development Aid from People to People since 1993. DAPP's country director Lakson Soda expressed gratitude to Instatal Africa, noting that running a children's home requires collective effort.
We want our children here also to learn life skills. Those skills which they are going to survive when they go out of this home. 18 years they have to go, but then we said they have to learn how to grow vegetables, how to grow fruits, how to grow maize, and also taking care of small animals like rabbits and chickens, and you could also see we also have an oxen here, a cow. So they have to be as good as any other child in the rural or in the urban to understand and to get the skills they could also survive on.
You are watching Newsplus. Stay with us. We'll be back shortly.
Stay connected to DSTV this April and May and get all the football finals you want.
You are still watching Newsplus right here on ZTN Prime. Thank you so much for staying with us. Now look at news from around the world. We started off in South Africa, where African leaders Paul Kagame and Cyril Ramaphosa have called for greater continental self-reliance at the Africa CEO Forum this week, responding to both international aid cuts and persistent regional conflicts with a shared message: Africa must take control of its own future. Rwandan President Paul Kagame referred US President Donald Trump's recent aid reductions and tariff hikes on Rwandan exports. While controversial, Kagame suggested that the move should serve as a wake-up call. While Kagame stressed economic independence, South African President Cyril Ramaphosa turned the spotlight to regional peacekeeping efforts, particularly in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo.
As Africa, so it isn't like we should just wake up one morning and because of what somebody has done that affects us, we should have been building up the momentum in terms of what we need to do to make Africa self-dependent and resilient and also in how Africa works with other continents and other countries.
On the peace process, particularly in the conflict that's been happening on our continent and particularly in the Eastern DRC, I'd like to compliment rather than contradict what President Kagame is saying. The processes that have been happening on the continent, either the Nairobi process or the Luanda process or the AU process, have been very, very essential in building a foundation of peacemaking.
Still in South Africa, foot and mouth disease cases have been reported and found in multiple provinces, many impacting its beef exports. Now, foot and mouth disease, or hoof and mouth disease, is a highly contagious viral disease that affects cattle, sheep, goats, pigs and other cloven-hoofed animals and has severe implications for animal farming. The Agricultural Department of South Africa has confirmed that the outbreak is spread across KwaZulu-Natal and Highveld. Eastern Cape reported earlier that over 70 livestock have shown suspected symptoms of foot and mouth disease on a farm that is in the province since late April. The number of cases has continued to rise, and on the 1st of May, laboratory tests confirmed the foot and mouth disease.
South Africa, for example, just about 3 years ago, we struggled with all three major diseases at the same time. We had foot and mouth disease, we had avian influenza in poultry, and in the pig industry, we had African swine fever. But I would add that there are also some domestic weaknesses in South Africa that are related to our production of vaccines. And perhaps we need to improve even on the control of the movement of animals, especially in the informal areas.
Africans have reacted to the election of the first North American pontiff. They have shared their expectations of their new spiritual leader, but in the same breath, they were hoping that the first African pope was going to be elected during this election. Some African Christians expressed regret that the new pope is not African, but yet placed their faith in God for having chosen the right man to lead his church.
Of course, we are very happy. And I'm very happy because by the inspiration and under the inspiration of the Holy Spirit, the cardinals have chosen a new leader, a new shepherd for the church. And we are grateful to God for that.
We're all very happy. Just like Pope Francis, he was elected on the second day of the conclave. And we are so happy. But then we would have been happier if it were a black Pope, because we were all anticipating that Cardinal Texan could have been our next Pope. Unfortunately, we didn't get that opportunity, but we are still happy we have a new Pope.
In Israel, an Israeli delegation will arrive to Doha for talks on a Gaza ceasefire and hostage release, as announced by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. He stated that negotiations will continue under military pressure. This follows a meeting with U.S. officials focused on securing a hostage release agreement before increased military operations in Gaza. Hamas has expressed readiness for negotiations to end the conflict, arrange a prisoner exchange, and establish a governing body for Gaza stability. In London, a power outage struck the city underground, causing widespread travel disruptions across the capital on Monday afternoon. Transport for London said that the issues had been caused by a short power outage, which happened around afternoon, leaving some passengers potentially stranded in train carriages within tunnels. Power has since been restored, but delays and suspensions in major lines are ongoing. According to TfL, by Monday evening, services on the London Underground began to gradually resume following the incident. The UK National Grid attributed the disruption to a cable fault on the transmission network in central London.
I was working overtime till 6, and then because of the problems on the district line as well, it meant that I had to do a half an hour extra of overtime in order to make sure I could get back home.
And now for some business news.
Harare, tune into the beat.
Capitalk 100.4 FM, your source for news, business, sports, fashion, and more.
Experience the pulse of Harare's culture and lifestyle.
Capitalk 100.4 FM, Harare's top radio station.
Join the conversation with Zimbabwe's top personalities.
Subscribe now for fresh and infotainment content daily.
Capital 100.4 FM, Harare's heartbeat.
In a look at business news tonight, Deputy Minister of Agriculture Evangelis Haritatos this week led a Zimbabwean delegation to Benin on a visit meant to explore areas around agro-industry at the Globe Dijbe Industrial Zone. The Ministry of Agriculture, in partnership with Arise and Afreximbank, is spearheading the Export Agriculture on Food Security initiative to bolster food security and boost export capacity.
The economy is based on cotton. So we're here in this beautiful country trying to learn from the farmers, discussing with the farmers to see what they're doing well with, the government's doing well with their farmers, so that we can also share ideas and see what COTCO can do to improve relations with the farmers, whether it's agronomy, whether it's input supply, whatever we can find out. And then if that's not enough, we're now looking at how they are pushing that into the industry itself, the value addition, the lint, the cloth.
The mission is pivotal for extracting critical insights into operational excellence, stakeholder synergy, and industrial scalability. The visit not only refines domestic strategy, but also forges international cooperation pathways.
Companies like Polo, we would also be keen on looking and talking and discussing with companies like that to see how at an advanced stage in a few years from now, how we can also produce and export to the US, to the EU, to the UK, to the Middle East, as well as to countries far like China. And we believe that our cotton, the quality is fantastic, that we, through our agronomy, that we can continue to improve the quality of our cotton.
Listed clothing retailer Edgars Limited opened a new Jet store branch in Chiredzi as it seeks to expand its branch network across the country. The addition brings the tally to 38 branches. Edgars has been on a bullish trajectory and has expanded its retail footprint with the launch of new express stores in Rusape and Harare in high-traffic locations. Edgars Regional Operations Manager Mondli Hlongwane says the new branch openings is in response to a growing market in the Shurugu area.
So look, I think from a business perspective, obviously we are a fashion house. Jet is known for good quality product, and we are simply just saying we want to bring it to the customers' doorstep. So Shurugu presented an opportunity for us, which we are happy to have also just decided to come to. So look, I can give you a number and say, look, we've got 38 Jet stores countrywide. So obviously when we looked at Shurugu and the community, it presented the market that we need. Is they've got trendy individuals, people that also then appreciate our brand. Some of them are actually going to Gweru to come and shop. So why not buy in Shurugu? So that's why we've come here.
Still in business, Caledonia Mining's revenue for the quarter was $56.2 million, a 46% increase from $38.5 million in the comparative 2024 period. This improvement was driven by higher sales and a 42% increase in the average realized gold price to $2,896 per ounce. Gross profit nearly doubled to $26.9 million, resulting in a gross margin of 48%. Now, Caledonia's net profit attributable to shareholders increased nearly 6 times to $8.9 million, while adjusted earnings per share rose to 5 cents from 9.7 cents in the first quarter of 2024. We are now joined live by Eben Mabunda for perspectives on the numbers. Eben, good evening to you. Now, just quickly, what is your assessment of the performance of Caledonia?
Well, good evening. A strong set of results there for the quarterly performance of Caledonia, notably earnings per share coming in at about 60 cents in the first quarter of this year, up from 9 cents in the comparative period of 2024. Of course, the gross profit doubling to about $26 million, of course, on the back of a surge in terms of the gold prices witnessed in the quarter. We're looking at the gold prices that are now at about $3,500 per ounce, and so this has contributed to the strong numbers that we are seeing. At the same time, there has been a growth in terms of the gold production, which went up by 9%. But when you look at the 100% growth in terms of the gross profit vis-a-vis the 9% growth in terms of the gold production, that's then of course explained by the increase or the surge in terms of the gold prices on global markets. But really a strong set of results. A dividend declared, however, in my view, the dividend would be a questionable move given the fact that their cash flow position is very much in the negative. It improved from $14 million in the negative in the comparative period of 2024 to about $4 million in the first quarter of 2025, but then again still being in the negative position. That dividend declaration would not be advisable. However, Caledonia defends the position, saying that this is a position adopted by the board in 2014, but that would negatively affect the cash flow position of the group.
Now, Eben, thank you so much for that crunch down of the numbers. But then, how sustainable is the positive growth trajectory of Caledonia going forward?
Well, in terms of sustainability, the strategy of Caledonia appears very much on the robust side. Well, of course, at their primary asset, which is Blanket Mine, the life of mine of some of the key pits now hangs in the balance, not going beyond perhaps 10 to 15 years. So the strategy implemented by Caledonia has been to invest in other mining prospects, and so a couple of years back we saw the coming on board of Bilboes as well as Motapa, which are mining assets within the Gweru as well as the Bulawayo area. And according to the quarterly report at the Bilboes, there is a feasibility study that is currently underway, and a production of about 450 tons of gold, 450 ounces, beg your pardon, of gold produced at that particular project. You've also got the Motapa, where it is some investments have been made, benefiting from the sale of their solar plant, which went away for $22.5 million earlier on in the year. So in terms of sustainability, yes, the life of mine of Blanket Mine hangs very much in the balance, but there is a glimmer of hope, a glimmer of light from the Motapa and the Bilboes, and there are indications that other mining assets are very much on the horizon. Of course, as of course Caledonia seeks to extend its mining operations in Zimbabwe beyond, of course, the life of mine of Blanket Mine.
Well, Eben Mabunda, our business correspondent. Eben, thank you so much for that explainer and that analysis. Now we give you some sporting action.
Didn't graduate. I guess I blew it.
You couldn't advise him anything. He would just look at you and say, so who do you think you are?
We were just like really spoiled.
And then they just give me the receipt and I'd pay.
Edgar walks in one day and then he says that he wants to make a movie.
He was blowing the money.
There was just like this habit that he had where as soon as he got money, it was gone.
I just didn't have the skills or the experience.
This money, I could see it disappear so fast.
They call me Racer X, or in this case, Racer J. All right.
Put your seatbelt on.
Catch exclusive interviews every weekday for candid, exciting, and thought-provoking conversations with your host, Erika Ndoro.
We talk about arts, we can talk about sports, we can even talk about politics, and sometimes we venture into a nice guitaristic play.
The one story where you can't get out of your head. Wakatarisa munhu so Erika like where you're sitting. Nozongokona bata face so pasina munhu.
Wakasiya music yako yo afro chakuti ndo music manje no Zimbabwe.
And I'm sure they're still saying the same thing now.
Yeah, so
Shona kana kuti chindevere kana mumwe mutaure muno muZimbabwe ndiwe iwewe ndiwo rupawo rwako ndicho chidadiso chako.
Catch me, Erika Ndoro, right here on ZTN Prime every single Monday at 7 p.m. whilst we get exclusive.
Now look at sport. We start off with some cricket, with Chevron's coach Justin Summons having said that his charges are naturally fired up ahead of the England Test match. The Chevrons held their first training session in Leicester on Monday since arriving in England for a landmark test match against the host that is scheduled to take place at Trent Bridge in Nottingham from the 22nd to the 25th of May. The one-off fixture marks Zimbabwe's return to the longest format on English soil for the first time in over 2 decades. Before taking on England, Zimbabwe will fine-tune their preparations with a 4-day warm-up match against a first-class Counties 11 from the 15th to the 18th of May at the Upperstill County Ground in Leicester. Zimbabwe head coach Justin Summons says that the players are in good spirits following their first training session at their temporary base.
They've got great energy. The group is really excited. I mean, I don't think you can get anything better than coming and playing Test cricket in England. So, I think it's just naturally energizing the group, and they're super excited to get going. Super excited. I mean, it's why you play the game. You want to play against the best, and obviously England are one of the best Test teams in the world. And it really gives us a gauge as to where we are and what we need to do moving forward. But guys have a real belief that they belong, and I'm looking forward to seeing them go out there with their chests puffed out and walking out there like they do belong in the space.
Despite the long travel and unfamiliar conditions, someone says that the players were embracing the challenge of competing in one of Test cricket's most prestigious settings.
I think our preparation is excellent. We've got 10 days ahead of us of good prep. So yeah, I don't think we could ask for anything more than that. It's great to get a warm-up game, which is exciting. And then obviously as we head into Nottingham, a couple more practices there. So yeah, like I say, from a preparation point of view, I don't think we can complain.
In some football, Dynamos have appointed Socha Minuka as their new head coach, replacing under-fire Lloyd Chigowe, who has guided the side to only 1 win in 11 matches. Chaminuka becomes the 10th coach to take charge at the Glamour Boys in over a decade, with Dynamos being his 4th team inside a year, having led Bikita Minerals and Green Fuel in 2024 before starting the year with Kwekwe United. He will be assisted by Philmon Muchikakureva, who returns for a 3rd stint with the side, having played for them and served as Pasua's understudy at Dynamos for 3 years, that is between 2012 and 2014, helping to oversee one of the most successful periods in the club's history. First up for Chaminuka and his technical team is the first installment of the Harare Derby this Sunday against Caps United. Still in football, on fire Highlanders midfielder Mason Mushore has attributed his good run of form to divine intervention and hard work. The Bosso defensive link man has been outstanding at heart of the club's midfield. A box-to-box player, Mushore has breathed life into the team's engine room since getting a chance.
I can just say it's God, and I think it's God this time. So I think the way I push hard, I training, even doing my own training, I think that's the results. I think it's because of I want to achieve more, and I told myself that this should be my year. I have to keep on working hard so that I can achieve many things. Our target is to win championship and to win more cups with the team, and to go national team and play overseas.
Still in football, Moors FC's Tafadzeni George went from dreaming of top-flight football to being an anchor in their debut season. George is delighted by how the side has started life in the top flight and has set his sights on a good campaign so as to repay the faith of the club owners who ensured that they play top-flight football.
Magame atatamba so far ndunzo ufarao sezo tango ngopinda Premier this season tasingatombotaisa kuti maybe pamwe tapinda Premier asi nekuda kwevakuru vedu vakaona kuti zonzo zviri nani tikatengawo maybe franchise apa tobva tapinda then Premier, so ndono zvinhu zvakanaka kuti zonzo vakatipo mukana wekuti zonzo tisimukirewo. Ende target yangu inini ezitafadzwa George, shuro yangu kungotambo maybe this season ndova ndaendawo kunze kwenyika, ndo pane target yangu. Zvinhu zvakandikochera singaiti because kutotamba week in week out, kutorakidza nyangwe patraining ndinenge ndichopushawo hard zvekurakidzawo kuti zonzo ndoda totambawo ramba ndichitamba ndichipusha kuti ndionekerewo.
The left wing-back hopes to utilize the opportunity presented to him by Lloyd Mutasa and hopes to come up with more spirited performances whenever he plays for Moors at Ngoni Stadium.
Zvinhu zvakandikochera singaiti because kutotamba week in week out, kutorakidza nyangwe patraining ndinenge ndichopushawo hard zvekurakidzawo kuti zonzo ndoda totambawo ramba ndichitamba ndichipusha kuti ndionekerewo. Feeling yacho yakanyanyisa sezvo tiri pahome unongoziva kuti zonzo panopo confidence zvokuti zonzo hautye, unoita zvinhu zvaunoda une confidence yekuti zonzo tiri pamba pedu chaipo, saka there's no need yekuti uite fear.
Minister of Sport, Recreation, Arts and Culture, Lieutenant General Retired Anselm Sanatu, today visited two professional golfers that were injured in a road accident that claimed one life on Sunday. The accident involved 4 golfers at the intersection of Samora Machel and 7th Street in Harare. The minister said that he is informed that the 2 admitted golfers are on a recovery path. Meanwhile, Bigi Chivuri, who was behind the wheel when the accident claimed the life of one professional golfer on Sunday, narrates what happened.
I think we're driving along 7. She approached our right particular driver named Samana 7. So, Takatopura, the first one, and there's Nasamona, there is cars that goes to town, and then the next Shibram town. So Takatopura, the Tangari. And then, so when you're approaching the second one, at now, Tombo, so not too common. So I mean, not more than then I got to open Katkandra Kunzanga. So the next thing does, I'm going to ambulance.
Such a sad day for the golfing community. May their souls rest in peace and those that are injured recover quickly. That's all we had for you on Newsplus this Tuesday evening. Thank you so much for making the time and for joining us. My name is Faith Nyaude. We leave you with a weather forecast. Good evening and enjoy the rest of your viewing.
On this week's episode of C'est La Vie, it's a cluster world.